You ever notice how the first $100 feels weirdly harder to save than 10,000? Not logically harder, not mathematically harder, just heavier. Like you tell yourself, okay, this month I'm finally going to save money. Nothing crazy. You're not trying to become rich, you're not trying to retire early, you just want to put aside $100. 100. The kind of amount people online talk about like it's nothing. Skip a few coffees, cook at home, cancel one subscription. Done. Easy. Except it never feels easy when you're actually living it. Something always comes up. A bill you forgot, a small expense that didn't seem like a big deal, a moment where you're tired, stressed, and you think, you know what? I deserve this. And somehow, the $100 you plan to save disappears before it ever existed. And the strange part is, once people finally do save money, once they have a few thousand sitting there, saving the next thousand doesn't feel nearly as hard. In fact, for some people, it almost feels automatic. Which makes no sense, because $10,000 is obviously harder than 100, except it doesn't feel that way. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, not just how to make it, but why it feels the way it does, why small amounts can feel impossible and bigger amounts somehow feel normal, why the first step always feels heavier than the ones that come later. And the more I pay attention to this, the more I realize the first $100 isn't hard because of math. It's hard because of momentum. Or more accurately, the lack of it. Because when you're starting from zero, every dollar feels like effort. Every decision feels like sacrifice. Every small choice feels like it matters more than it should. It's like trying to push a car that won't start. You lean into it. You try harder. Nothing moves. And after a while, you start wondering if the problem is the car or you. But once the car starts moving, even a little, it's a completely different experience. The first reason the first $100 feels so hard is because when you don't have money saved, every dollar already has a job. Before you even get paid, your brain has already spent it. Rent, food, gas, bills, something you forgot, something that might happen, something that always happens at the worst time. There's no extra. There's just a list of things waiting. So when you try to save, it doesn't feel like you're moving money. It feels like you're taking money away from yourself. You put $20 aside, and immediately your brain starts talking. What if you need that later? What if something breaks? What if you regret this? And when you're broke, that voice is loud. When you already have 10,000 saved, putting aside another 100 doesn't feel dangerous. It feels normal. But when you have nothing, saving even a small amount feels risky, like you're making your life harder on purpose. That's why the first 100 feels heavy, not because it's big, but because it feels unsafe. The second reason the first $100 feels harder than 10,000 is something people don't talk about enough: decision fatigue. When you don't have money, every choice costs energy. Should I buy this? Should I wait? Can I afford this? Do I need this? Is this stupid? It sounds small, but making those decisions all day is exhausting. And when you're tired, your brain doesn't want the smartest option. It wants the easiest one. And saving money is almost never the easiest option in the moment. The easiest option is buying the thing, ordering the food, saying yes, not thinking about it. That's why the first $100 takes so much willpower. You're not just saving money, you're fighting habits you built over years without even realizing it. And habits don't change in one decision. They change in repetition. The third reason the beginning feels so hard is because progress is invisible when the numbers are small. If you save $10, nothing changes. If you save $50, nothing changes. Even $100 doesn't make you feel safe. You still check your account. You still worry about bills. You still feel behind, so your brain starts asking the question nobody wants to hear. What's the point? Humans need to see progress to stay motivated. We need proof that what we're doing matters. But saving the first $100 doesn't feel like progress. It feels like effort without reward. Once you have a few thousand, though, every deposit feels different. You see the number move. You feel the difference. You start thinking, okay, this is working. And that feeling changes everything. Another reason the first 100 feels harder is because you're not just building savings, you're building identity. When you've never saved money before, saving feels unnatural. You think things like, people like me don't have money. People like me don't invest. People like me can't afford to save. Even if you don't say it out loud, it's there. So every time you try to save, it feels like you're going against the version of yourself you're used to being, and that's uncomfortable in a way that's hard to explain. But once you save a little, something shifts. You start thinking, maybe I am someone who saves money. Maybe I am someone who can do this. That moment right there is the start of momentum. Momentum is the part nobody understands until they feel it. When you have zero saved, saving feels like work. When you have some saved, saving feels normal. When you have a lot saved, saving feels automatic. Not because the math changed, because your brain changed. You stop asking, can I save this? You start asking, why would I spend this? That's a completely different mindset, and once you reach that point, the next 1,000 really does feel easier than the first 100. There's also something strange that happens once you have money saved. Life gets quieter. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, everything feels urgent. Every expense feels like a problem that has to be solved right now. You react to money instead of deciding what to do with it. But when you have even a small cushion, things slow down. You don't panic as fast. You don't say yes to every expense. You don't feel like one mistake will ruin everything. And that calm makes saving easier, not because you suddenly became disciplined, but because you stopped being afraid. Another reason the first $100 feels so hard is because nobody sees it. Nobody congratulates you for saving $20. Nobody notices when you skip buying something. Nobody cares that you didn't order food this week. Saving small amounts is invisible work, and humans are terrible at staying motivated when the effort is invisible. When people finally have thousands saved, it feels real. It feels like something you can point to, something you can be proud of, something that proves you're moving forward. At the beginning, you don't get that feeling. You just get the effort. So how do you get past the first 100? Not with motivation, not with some perfect budget, not with waiting until life gets easier. You get past it by deciding that the beginning is supposed to feel hard. You make the decision once, then again, until saving stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling normal. You stop expecting the numbers to feel exciting. You stop expecting progress to feel obvious. You stop expecting the first step to feel small. Because it isn't small. The first $100 is heavy because it's the moment you stop living the way you always have. It's the moment you stop reacting and start choosing. It's the moment you prove to yourself you can do something different. And once that happens, everything else gets lighter. The next 100 feels easier. The first 1,000 feels possible. 10,000 feels real. Not because money suddenly became simple, but because you built momentum. So if saving your first $100 feels harder than it should, that doesn't mean you're bad with money. It means you're at the hardest part. The part where nothing feels rewarding yet. The part where every decision feels like effort. The part where progress is invisible. Most people quit here, not because they can't do it, but because they think it's supposed to feel easier than this. It's not. The beginning always feels heavier. The first push is always the hardest. The first 100 always feels bigger than it should. But once you get past it, Once the number finally starts to grow, once saving stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like control, you realize something most people never figure out. The hardest part of building money isn't making thousands, it's proving to yourself you can save the first 100.